Hi everyone! In this video, I'm going to be talking about sentence structure. We're going to talk about simple sentences, so how to write that basic sentence and do it correctly, compound sentences, and complex sentences. So hopefully by the end of watching this video, you'll learn about some basic sentence types you can use in your writing. Let's take a look at some examples. Which one is a sentence and why? Chameli Waiba, the author of The Magic of Letters. Chameli Waiba lives in a village in Nepal. Which one is a sentence? Number 2 is a sentence. It's actually shorter, but this one is the sentence. Number 1 isn't a complete sentence. Why? Basically, number 2 has a subject, Chameli Waiba, and a verb, lives, and a complete thought. In a village in Nepal. To have a sentence in English, you need to have these 3 components in order to have a complete sentence. The first one is not complete. What's missing? It's actually missing a verb. You would need, for example, is. Chameli Waiba is the author of The Magic of Letters. Let's talk a little bit more about what makes a complete sentence. To have a complete sentence, you need 3 things. First, a subject. Second, verb. And third, a complete thought. It's very important to have all of these 3 things in your sentences. Also, don't forget, we begin every sentence with a capital letter and end it with a period. For example, Chameli believes in the power of education. What's the subject? Chameli, verb, believes, and then the complete thought, in the power of education. So this is a complete sentence. And don't forget you need a capital letter and then a period at the end of the sentence. How would you make this a sentence? Joined, N class, literacy, she adult. How could we make a complete sentence? She joined an adult literacy class. Subject, verb, and complete thought. It's important to keep in mind the word order. Okay, first comes the subject, then the verb, and then the complete thought. How would you make this a sentence? How she learned to spell her name. She learned how to spell her name. First we have the subject, then the verb, and then the complete thought. What's different about this sentence here? She had a difficult time, but her education changed her life. This sentence here is actually a compound sentence. And basically what a compound sentence does is you basically have 2 sentences. She had a difficult life. This is one sentence with a subject, verb, and a complete thought. And then here we have another complete sentence. So we have a sentence here and a sentence there, and then in the middle we have this thing. It's called a conjunction. So let's review compound sentences. This is the second type of sentence structure. A compound sentence has 2 independent clauses or sentences and a coordinating conjunction in the middle and a comma. She had a difficult life, but her education changed her life. We have the first independent clause, the second independent clause. This just means they're sentences, they're complete sentences. And then in the middle, we have our coordinating conjunction, but, and a comma. Let's talk a little bit more about coordinating conjunctions. In English, we have 7 coordinating conjunctions. For, this is the same meaning as because when it's used like a conjunction. Her life changed, for she learned how to read and write. This is the same as saying because. Now be careful, for can also be a preposition like I walked for 1 hour or I slept for 8 hours. That's a different meaning. Here it's used to mean because. And she helped build a bridge and she helped start micro-saving groups. Nor, she didn't have an education, nor did she have the courage to start learning. Nor means also not. She didn't have an education, also she didn't have the courage. So that's what nor means, also not. But she wanted to build a bridge, but people laughed at her idea. Or you can make a change, or you can do nothing. We use or to show choices. Yet, she started her education as an adult, yet it is never too late to learn. Yet means but. So, the rain caused flooding, so she wanted to build a bridge. So means for that reason. The rain was flooding the area. For that reason, she wanted to build the bridge. Sometimes we refer to coordinating conjunctions as fanboys to help you remember. That's an acronym, fanboys, to help you remember all the conjunctions. I want to talk a little bit more about this word and. We use it a lot in English, and probably you use it a lot in other languages too. We use commas to combine words or phrases, not just sentences. When we have 2 words or phrases, you don't use a comma. Her new knowledge boosted or improved her confidence and courage. So I'm combining these 2 words with and. You don't need a comma here. However, if you have 3 or more words or phrases, you need to use the comma. They got support, materials, and volunteer workers. And so here we have 3 things. And in between we're going to use commas. And you use and between the last 2 items in a list. Okay? But if you're combining, remember when you're combining 2 sentences, like in this example, if you're combining 2 independent clauses, you need the comma. Okay, let's practice. How would you combine these sentences? What would work? And, so, or but? The kids couldn't go to school during rainy season. She built a bridge. Which one would work? So, the kids couldn't go to school during rainy season, so she built a bridge. How would you combine these sentences? What would work? And, so, or but? She plans to open a library. She wants to run an adult literacy class. Here and would work. She wants to do both these things. She plans to open a library, comma, and she wants to run an adult literacy class. Also, you can delete the she. If you have the same subject and you're using and, you don't have to repeat it. And if that's the case, you can also delete the comma, okay, because I don't have 2 independent clauses. How would you combine these sentences with and? She learned how to read. She learned how to write. She learned how to read and she learned how to write. But we have some repetition here. She learned how to. It's repeated 2 times. So actually you don't have to repeat it again the second time. You could just say she learned how to read and write. And I'm just combining these 2 words, so I don't need a comma here. But if you're combining 2 independent clauses, don't forget the comma. How would you combine these sentences with and? She was strong, she was smart, she was caring. You could write 3 sentences, 3 independent clauses. She was strong, she was smart, and she was caring. But again, there's a lot of repetition. So you could say she was strong, smart, and caring. You could have a list of 3, and then I'm putting my commas in between. Now let's talk about the third type of sentence structure, and that's complex sentences. What do you notice about this sentence? How is it different from a compound sentence? When Chameli learned the alphabet, it changed her life. We have our subject, our verb, and complete thought, and another subject, another verb, and a complete thought. So it's similar to compound sentences where you have 2 sentences. But notice in the middle here, we don't have one of the fanboys. We don't have a coordinating conjunction, just a comma. And also we have this word here, when. This is called a subordinating conjunction. Let's talk more about complex sentences. Complex sentences are different from compound sentences because they have a dependent clause and an independent clause. Remember, compound sentences had 2 independent clauses, but with complex sentences, there's only 1 independent clause. And I'm going to talk more about what this dependent clause is. In addition, complex sentences have a subordinating conjunction. This is different from a coordinating conjunction. This here is a dependent clause. And a dependent clause has a subordinating conjunction, which is when. When Chameli learned the alphabet, we call it a dependent clause is because this is incomplete. I don't know. When Chameli learned the alphabet, well, what happened when she learned the alphabet? It's an incomplete thought. Here, after the comma, I have my independent clause. It changed her life. I'm finishing the thought and making it complete. And notice we have the comma in the middle between the dependent clause and the independent clause. Now I want to talk a little bit about word order. Complex sentences are a little bit different from compound sentences because you can move clauses around. For example, after she went to school, her life changed. But you could also say, her life changed, so you bring this part here to the beginning of the sentence. Her life changed after she went to school. And then I'm kind of like switching, switching the order. You can do that with complex sentences. So you can begin with a dependent clause and then follow it with an independent clause. And then you have your comma in the middle. Or you can begin with an independent clause and follow it with the dependent clause. If you do that, you don't need the comma, okay? Because you have your subordinating conjunction in the middle. Here, you don't need the comma. Here are some common subordinating conjunctions. There are many in English, but I want to just talk about these common ones. As, while, when, after, before, even though, if. As I learn more, I become smarter. This has the same meaning as while. While I'm learning to read, I'm learning to write. Again, these are parallel things. These are things happening at the same time. When I go to school, I learn a lot. After I took the class, I could speak English better. So this is what happened after. Or you could use before. Before I took the class, I had a hard time communicating. Even though, we use even though to show contrast. Even though I make some mistakes, I can communicate very well. So this means I can communicate very well, but sometimes I make mistakes. So here we're showing contrast. And then finally, if. This sets up conditions or hypothetical situations. If I continue to take the class, I will get even better. So if I do this, then that will happen. Let's practice. How can we finish these sentences? As or while I watched the grammar video, what did you do while you watched my grammar video? As or while I watched the grammar video, comma, I took notes. Or I took notes as while I watched the grammar video. How can we finish this sentence? Even though I make grammar mistakes, comma, I'm getting better. Or I'm getting better even though I make grammar mistakes. Remember, we use this to show contrast. If I need help with grammar, if I need help with grammar, comma, I can meet with the tutor or teacher. Or I can meet with the tutor or teacher if I need help with grammar. And remember, we don't need the comma if the dependent clause goes second. Okay, I hope by watching this video you have a better understanding of 3 basic types of sentences: a simple sentence, a compound sentence, and a complex sentence. There are other ways to write sentences, but it's good to start with the basics, and then as the semester goes on, we'll be paying attention and noticing other types of ways we can write sentences in English. Okay. If you have any questions, please email me, and I'm happy to help you. Bye.